My name is Bond.
James Bond.
James Bond.
Moonraker 1, liftoff.
Gravity, normal condition. Life support system, solid.
Look after Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him.
The space shuttle Moonraker is hijacked in midair, and secret agent James Bond 007, after a harrowing midair confrontation, is called in to track down the missing shuttle. James Bond flies out to California where he's met by Corinne, and is brought out to the headquarters of Drax Industries and the magnificent chateau where he meets the mysterious Hugo Drax. After some afternoon tea, James Bond is introduced to Dr. Holly Goodhead, who shows Bond around the facility and introduces Bond to the centrifuge training, which almost has disastrous results. Bond has an evening rendezvous with Corinne, who helps him crack Hugo Drax's safe, which grants him access to some secret plans. In the morning, James Bond meets with Hugo Drax for some pheasant hunting, where James Bond takes out something a little bigger. But the lovely Corinne is taken out for her treachery. James Bond continues his search to Venice, Italy, where he investigates Fanini glass. After a little reconnaissance, Bond rediscovers Dr. Goodhead. 007 is pursued through the canals of Venice, but escapes with the help of a gondola, courtesy of Q Branch. That evening, Bond revisits the glass manufacturer and discovers more than he bargained for, a laboratory developing a deadly compound. Bond runs into a deadly adversary, but Bond manages to dispatch the deadly foe. James Bond pays a visit to Dr. Holly Goodhead, who turns out to be a little bit more than she appears, and the two join forces. James Bond leads M and Frederick Gray to see the deadly laboratory, only to find that Hugo Drax has made some quick changes. Bond follows the trail to Rio de Janeiro, where he meets his lovely contact Manuela, and following an afternoon of horizontal sambo, the two investigate one of Drax's warehouses, and Manuela has a run-in with an old adversary. Later, while observing a departing caravan of air freight, James Bond once again runs into Dr. Holly Goodhead, and while the two travel by cable car, the two run into another old adversary. And as the two escape the cable car, the confrontation comes to a crashing conclusion, and Jaws manages to make a new friend. Bond and Dr. Goodhead are abducted, but 007 is able to escape and rendezvous with HQ. And after a briefing with M and Q, it's off to the Amazon, where Bond quickly gets a hot reception. Bond's old nemesis shows up, but he makes an airborne escape. Once on the ground, Bond follows an attractive lead, where he once again comes face to face with Hugo Drax. Drax unveils his deadly plan to take out the human population. Bond is reunited with Dr. Goodhead, but the two are left to be incinerated under the space shuttle. But with the help of a Q gadget, Bond and Holly Goodhead escape. The two then disguise themselves as astronauts and board one of the space shuttles, which takes them to a mysterious space station. After a little reconnaissance work, the two are able to get word to the authorities. But the three observe 3 deadly satellites being launched into space, but are soon discovered and brought to Hugo Drax. James Bond is able to convince Jaws to switch sides, and the battle begins. When the cavalry arrives, it's a battle in space. Bond confronts Hugo Drax, who takes a giant step for mankind. The good guys win the battle, and with a little help, they manage to escape the space station before it's destroyed. And James Bond and Dr. Goodhead pursue and destroy the deadly satellites. And James Bond and Dr. Goodhead go around the world one more time. Written by Christopher Wood and directed by Lewis Gilbert, 1979's Moonraker.
Ah, yes, Moonraker, the quintessential Bond film. No, I'm kidding. No, this was a big film. After Spy Love Me did so well, Broccoli decided to double down, triple down. And he actually spent, I think it's almost like, double the budget of Spy Who Loved Me. I think it was a $30 million budget, which this is like 1978, $79. So, and I think, Spy was like 15, which was, nothing to sneeze at that time. So yeah, this is a double down.
And it's a film that a lot of hardcore Bond fans, a whole generation of Bond fans, look back on and say this was the one that kind of got me in when I was young.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's you could say that about me. I mean, I had seen, I got lucky and I saw some of the earlier Moore ones before this one. But I remember I was 11 years old when this came out, and long story short, my mother took me to see this. It was like one of those things where I got to take the day off school. And it was like the best day ever, And at 11 years old, the whole Jaws thing and everything, it's not a big deal. That's one great thing about being at that age, where I was just about coming on the cusp of, becoming an inner critic, But before that, you're just kind of like, you either like it or you don't, and that's it. And, I happened to love this when I was 11 years old. I thought it was great,
Yeah.
Because like the Star Wars phenomena had sort of begun, had been kind of in full swing for a couple of years. Empire Strikes Back wasn't out yet, so it was just that one movie, Star Wars. But that movie was such a phenomena. I don't even know if anything compares to it today. I mean, maybe you could say like maybe some of the Marvel movies, but even the Marvel movies don't have that sustained buzz that keeps going and going. Because like Star Wars came out, and 6 to 8 months later you go see it again, and to a packed house. So it was crazy. And so Moonraker capitalized on the Star Wars phenomena there, because the original movie was scheduled to be For Your Eyes Only, but they decided to go with Moonraker, and it's probably a wise choice. I think it just kind of seemed like the right time to do it.
I'll go with that. And honestly, it's funny when you think back, it was almost just dumb luck that at that point they've already done how many Bond films up until this point?
Right. This is the number 11, right? For them?
Yeah.
For Eon Productions? I think so, right?
There's only like however many Fleming titles. So it was sort of just dumb luck that of the few titles that were left, Moonraker happened to be one of them. So, right in time for the science fiction craze.
Wasn't in the book like he had a Moonraker missile that was aiming towards London? Wasn't that sort of the plot of Moonraker, the book? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was almost closer to like the Thunderball plot, really. But it was a full-blown rocket, I think, and yes, it was going to crash into London.
I'm glad you brought up Thunderball, because for years I thought this was kind of like a copy of the plot-wise, like a sort of a copy of Spy Who Loved Me, which was kind of like a take on You Only Live Twice, right? But I was watching this the other night, and I said, you know what? There's more similarities to Thunderball here than I think in either Spy Who Loved Me or You Only Live Twice, to me. And I think it's kind of more as Thunderball. It's not as good as a film as Thunderball, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying in the context of how they spent all the money and scenes that are very similar in nature, which I was like kind of like, oh, yeah, I never quite, and I was like, after how many years I finally put these pieces together. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. And, I still, watching it now to get ready for this review, honestly.
Were you dragging your feet on this one a little bit?
I wouldn't say dragging my feet. I wasn't. I didn't go in kicking and screaming, because I mean, honestly,
right. Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like it's one of those bad Bond movies that even when they're bad, they're pretty good, and it's fun to kind of chuckle and poke fun at certain things.
Right.
So yeah, I never mind watching this one, and it does have some great scenes. I mean, the opening, the pre-titles, and the parachute.
Well, I think we should talk about the pre-titles really for a second there, because it's like 88 jumps to get that scene. Right. These guys actually going out and skydiving and doing this crazy stuff outside, in the air. It's amazing. When I first saw it, you could imagine my little 11-year-old self just staring at that big screen and seeing this amazing skydiving sequence. It was spectacular. I still think it is. I mean, back project. Obviously the close-ups of Moore and Keel are not those guys. They're not in the air, obviously, but those guys are really doing that. Or stealing parachutes from each other in midair and all that. So it's amazing.
Yeah, to this day, I still say that's definitely one of the best pre-titles. I mean, it's a spectacular sequence.
Is.
I even watch it today and kind of find myself asking more questions about it. For example, when Roger Moore takes the other guy's parachute and he's putting it on. Now it's pretty. You can tell it's a pretty flimsy looking pack, but he's trying to get it on. I remember watching it this time, thinking to myself, okay, well he has to have a parachute on under his jacket.
Right.
So when he puts this pack on, does the stuntman now have to take it back off to actually pull the real chute? I'm not sure. So I mean, yeah, it's wildly complicated, and the fact that they made it work is just so wild.
Yeah, even like just coming down and trying to gnaw on his ankle can't ruin the scene really for me. It's just like because it's so spectacular, and I remember there's certain things in movies that you remember for whatever reason. And I remember, the audience gasping when he got pushed out the plane, and it's a great moment,
Yeah, it really
is something you didn't expect,
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, there's a lot to like about this film. Just in terms of my overall thoughts about it, there is a lot to like about it. I do appreciate, if nothing else, again, it did bring in to usher in a new generation of Bond fans, which I kind of worry that we're not doing today. So yeah, I mean it's all great, and again, it is candy. It's fast food.
The film was a huge success. I mean, huge. It was bigger than Spy Love Me, and I think up to that point, it made the most money of any Bond film. Obviously, inflation and stuff like that. Probably tickets sold, per ticket, is probably Thunderball, almost definitely. But as far as gross up to that point, this was one of the biggest ever.
Yeah. It's nothing short. It's a blockbuster for sure, and it like The Spy Who Loved Me, I sort of feel like when we talked about that movie and I said they didn't do anything half-assed. I mean, they said let's do it and let's do it all the way. I will sort of say that this film is similar in that respect, where they're kind of throwing everything at it in the kitchen sink. I mean, you barely finish one set piece before the next one is starting. So yeah, I mean it's okay. Having said that, I also have to pick on it for a couple things.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, there are issues with this movie, for sure. I mean, I think there's some terrific scenes. And I understand if you're a hardcore Bond fan and you don't really care for this, it kind of does get into some just zany, dumb humor. And which at the time, though, seeing it theatrically, I mean, people were rolling in the aisles, having a great time with this thing. But yeah, for a Bond film... I think Broccoli and the producers and everybody else involved with these Bond films sort of took stock after this one though and said, "What are we doing? Do we want to go in this direction, or do we want to get back to the roots?" And I think they do that in the next film.
For sure, yeah, and it's right. I think throughout the whole franchise, there are moments when things just kind of get just way carried away. And then they decide to sort of pull it back in a little bit.
Yeah.
This would be obviously one.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I find as I'm watching it, though, it's not just simply, again, the tone, the kind of, Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner-ish tone, the cartooniness of it. I mean, that's kind of a given, but I also find that there's other times when I'm looking at it and kind of going, yeah, we kind of got a little sloppy here.
There's some jarringly bad scenes, that cable car sequence starts off fairly well, but everything else about that it just doesn't work. It's one of the lesser action scenes in Bond film, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of promise to it, and it's an exciting idea, but it's not executed very well at all, I think, personally.
Right, it probably looked spectacular on the storyboards. But then when it came time to execute it, it's like, oh, wow, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Before you know it, it's all funky green screen, slow moving. I mean, Richard Kiel, his Jaws character is iconic and spectacular, but you can definitely get a sense that he doesn't move very well.
Yeah.
And I feel like in The Spy Who Loved Me, they sort of covered that up much better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Here,
absolutely,
it's very awkward. Like, you could tell this guy, he's a big man, that takes a toll on your health. It's not that easy to move around. But yeah, they try to imply. I mean, again, when he does the leap from one cable car to the other.
I was going to bring that up. That is so bad. I think part of the reason why that's bad, right, is I think they were like saying, well, Jaws has this strength, and he doesn't need to get a running start to make it across. He can just make a leap.
Right.
And I think they said, well, we'll fix this in the editing. And I was watching it. When I was watching it, I was like, oh, they do an insert of somebody jumping from one car to the next. But I don't know. I guess maybe the takeoff and the way they edit it doesn't work.
Right.
It's really weird.
It's a static shot.
Bad.
Kind of winding up. He goes up, then he's flying across, and then you see him kind of like at a standstill already. Yeah, it's a little weird. Yeah, I mean, there's other scenes too. Again, some of it is almost sort of behind the scenes a little bit. Like, for example, one of the things I always chuckle once, remember in Star Wars when the stormtrooper hits his head on the roof, and then once you saw it, you can't not see it anymore.
Yes, yeah, I see it every time now. Yeah,
you know, when I watch Moonraker, when I watch the pre-titles, when he's kissing the girl in the plane, and then she pulls the gun, and then the guy comes out. As soon as Roger Moore kicks the gun and they start fighting, she's in the background.
I remember you talking about this. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
She's still putting on her like nothing's going on. Like this is just another day at the office. And again, once I caught that, I can't stop seeing it.
I know. Now you got me looking at it too, because I'm watching it. And I'm like, oh, is that girl? What's she doing? Yeah,
is that right?
You bastard.
Sorry about that.
Like it.
And stuff like that. Again, it's even like again, they went to the trouble to film this magnificent stunt, the skydiving stunt, but that fight in the airplane, in the editing room. Where do they get these sound effects from? The sound effects are just awful. All the punches are so weird and clunky.
I might have a nostalgic thing there. I know what you're saying, but like it's like to me, it's that's what it is, you know. And I don't have any critical analysis of those sound effects, you know, anymore. It's like part of the music or something, you know. Which we should point out, the lovely, terrific John Barry score. And kind of on it, I mean, now it seems like, oh yeah, of course that's the music, the choice he made, but it's kind of almost experimental in a way. I'm not saying experimental where he's doing like weird things, but like he would take a moment where most composers, I think, would go, let's play the suspense of the action. Sometimes he'll go the opposite and he'll play the beauty of the scene, but somehow make it work. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Like the flight into space. I mean, it's such a beautiful track, and that's probably the longest cue he has in the film. But that's really terrific.
Yeah.
And the use of the Bond theme and the skydive is terrific.
Yes, and he kind of does that.
And sadly, not on the LP.
Version.
It's not on the album, which is
Really?
Yeah. There's some weird thing about the score. They wanted to get an expanded score has been sort of begged for years. And there's some kind of rights now. It's kind of unclear what's going on, whether the master tapes are gone or what's going on. And some people they did like a what do they call that? A crowdfund or
right, GoFundMe.
Oh yeah. They did that where they were gonna these people were gonna fund this thing, and they wanted this orchestra to play this complete score. And they actually were rolling along with this, and then they got a cease and desist about it. So
really?
that was the end of that. So it's like, well, I can't have it one way, we can't have it the other. It's like, yeah.
Another another moment that I watch when the shuttle gets hijacked. Mm-hmm. First of all, even just the dialogue, I kind of find it is not nearly as snappy as it was in The Spy Who Loved Me.
How are we doing, Richard?
We should pass over the English coast 15 minutes ahead of time, sir.
Well, with this load on our back, that's good going.
Just trust the RAF, sir.
Just trust the RAF,
even
sir.
the pilot, right. Trust the RAF, and the guy chuckles. Haha, that was funny. Was it? He said, we made good time. Trust the RAF. He chuckles. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the two.
That's his boss. He's got to laugh.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
then
superior.
The two leather jacketed hoods were hiding out in the shuttle. Just
one of those dudes looks like Roman Polanski, right? I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. Maybe that's Green. That's Green from Quantum. That's like Green's father. Or
there
something.
You go.
I don't know.
There you go. I thought, I mean, it's really hysterical when the guys leather jackets. They look like they're in their 20s, and they go in the driver's seat. They buckle up and just take off as if I'm waiting for, like, I thought the guy was going to reach under the dashboard to hotwire it before they took off. You know,
I think that's pretty cool. I think it's a cool scene, though. I don't know. I mean, it's
that's all it takes to fly a space shuttle, I guess. You just jump in the seat and start driving it.
I think it's a pretty spectacular way to start the first 2 minutes. You know, you see the plane explode, and you know.
Listen, yeah, it is. And again, when you're young and you're watching this, you're not questioning stuff. I mean,
okay.
It's not a crack. I mean, honestly, I'm saying to myself. I mean, this is a target audience, but again. But we just sort of came off of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yes.
And again, I remember that all those submarine scenes, they seem pretty well done, well thought out, well staged. And then you come to this, and it's just like, just kind of down and dirty. Let's get on with this. You know,
it could be also too, and I'm not knocking Christopher Wood here, but I think we all pretty much agree he's no Richard Maybaum. And maybe Maybaum's, I don't know how much work Maybaum did on this, or if he did any, but
I don't think he did anything. I think this is all Christopher Wood.
That could be one of those things where, you know, Maybaum just has that ear for that. You know, he's good at those little moments, you know.
In fact, he does the novelization for Moonraker, and
he does, which I have.
It says a novel by Christopher Wood, you know. He did this too, so.
Right. And I think that's a spectacular, you know, I don't really, that stuff, I know what you're saying, but I think that's the movie's least problems, to be honest with you.
Well, that's...
I mean, no, really, those scenes are okay to me. It's when we get into the goofy stuff where, like, and even the stuff like that's because I clocked it this time. Jaws, after his little appearance in the teaser, Jaws doesn't come into the movie until another 55 minutes later. And then, you know, the rest of the action scenes are all the Wile E. Coyote stuff, right?
Yeah.
But before then, I wish I could say, well, and the action scenes were great up until, it's not quite true. You know, skydiving aside.
Yeah.
But I think...
tell you what, honestly, I kind of felt like the Wile E. Coyote stuff is sort of happening before he even shows up, because I remember...
It does.
As I was watching it today, I remember thinking that, and I actually, this is sort of the second time I've watched it and getting ready for this review.
Oh, really?
Watching it again today, I remember watching it and thinking, like, all right, I'm kind of on board for a lot of it. It wasn't, you know where it first lost me was the gondola chase. And Jaws isn't even here for that yet, but already, like, that was the first kind of moment where I kind of went, okay.
Because you're right.
From there, it just sort of goes. Again,
yeah, well, I think part of the problem here is that they got him pushing too many buttons. I mean, the souped-up gondola, that's really cool. But he's just pushing a bunch of buttons, and there doesn't seem to be any jeopardy. And, the guy's chasing him. Yeah, the guy's chasing him. They do the Jaws thing with those guys chasing him. You know, the one guy throws his gun down, and the other guy steps on the accelerator, and the guy falls out the boat, you know?
Right. Yeah, totally, right.
It's Jaws. It's Jaws without the Jaws, you know? The Jaws moment, yeah.
So even before Jaws gets in there, we're already sort of doing that cartoony Looney Tunes stuff.
The funny thing is, like, the first half hour of this is terrific, I think. I mean, terrific, because you got that skydiving thing to open the film, and then, they do the plot. You got Corinne. He meets Corinne Defoe. He's in the helicopter, and you get the whole kind of thing of the Drax estate and everything. That's really great stuff. And then you get that first meeting with Drax, which I think is really great. And Drax has got some great lines.
Look after Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him.
And how droll is Drax, right? He's one of the drollest villains ever, right?
Yeah.
But when they get to that centrifuge sequence, I think that's terrific. There's no goofiness in that. It's played straight, and it's one of the best scenes in the film, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's hard when you're kind of watching it. This movie really requires you to turn off any sort of a critical eye, because again, it's almost like when you see him kind of getting into it. Hey, you want to try this? If I'm him, I'm like, no. But
let me tell you something. I did this thing at Disney called Mission to Mars, I think. Deals in that G-force, and let me tell you something. That's pretty intense.
I'm sure it is, which is exactly why I did it like
first thing in the morning.
James Bond.
Yeah, I did it like first thing in the morning, and I was like I had like it was like a 6-hour trip there, and I hadn't slept much that night, and I was just like the first ride I got onto, and I was just like, oh my God, why? I'm like pushing all the buttons just so I can get out of there, pushing it as soon as I can,
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it's a fine scene. Again, it's good, and I like the idea. One of the things I'll say about the film is that Q gives him the gadget.
Yes,
and it doesn't come into play just once. It actually comes into play more than once.
Yeah, he gets to use it right. Yeah, he doesn't waste any time.
Yeah. So again, he uses the gadget, and I remember even when he got the gadget, I'm kind of like, all right, what is he, Spider-Man now? It's already feeling a little sci-fi before we even kind of get to that point. So, but again, it's a decent scene.
I think the centrifuge, in going back to my Thunderball thing, I think this is sort of a play on that traction table, just on, updated. And I think I would even say maybe a better sequence than that traction scene. I love the traction scene in Thunderball, don't get me wrong. But this is almost a little better. I don't know.
I got no problem saying this is better than that.
Right.
I mean, seriously, I goofed on the traction scene back then, and I said, why is it every machine has a setting that says danger? Don't set it to here because it's dangerous. This one, I mean, at least there's some work. Like the guy changes the controls a little bit.
I think that's the key, is that he actually does it himself. Even though it's kind of, you could say, well, he gets a get out of jail free with the wristwatch thing. But
it's okay.
Yeah, but I think that's a great scene. And Lois Child, we get introduced to Lois Childs, and sometimes I think I've seen some negative things said about her. I think she's fine in this. No,
I think, and again, I hate picking on any Bond actress, but I do sort of find that she's one of the weakest of the bunch, frankly.
Really.
Her delivery, like when he gets out of the centrifuge, and she goes,
"Something must have gone wrong with the controls."
There must have been something wrong with the controls. It's a really weird way she says that, I don't find her to be that effective, really. But she's fine, Not...
Okay, yeah, I like her. I think she's fine. Yeah, she's cool. I mean, and you talk about the strong Bond woman. I mean, she has all the ingredients there. She works for the CIA. She's got the astronaut training. She's a strong, independent woman. Yeah.
I remember,
Is that why you don't like her? Is that why?
You must be a misogynist and you don't like smart women. In fact, actually, I remember when...
You pig,
Yeah. When Bond meets her and you just found her, and he goes, a woman? Like, I kind of was like, dude, come on, really? Like, how many female agents and female femme fatales have you come across? Like, I found that line to be so weird. Like, oh, a woman, duh. like I don't know. It just seems. So
I hate
awkward.
to say this, but in 1979,
it's so. I didn't find it. I mean, the helicopter pilot was a female. I mean, what is so surprising at this point? This again, it's kind of late in the day to kind of go like, oh my goodness, a woman doing men's work. Like I found that to be a little weird. Again, this is not like the 60s. This is 79 for God's sake.
You got to take it up with Christopher Wood.
Yeah.
How about Corinne Defoe, played by Corinne? Corinne is like Corinne. Like her real name is Corinne, and she playing a character Corinne. That's pretty wild.
She was interesting too. I remember thinking that.
I gotta say, there's a movie that she hasn't done much work, but there's a movie that she did. This movie, Hitchhike, really cool. It's a really cool movie. Okay. It's got Franco Nero in it and David Hess from Last House on the Left. But basically, it's called Hitchhike, and basically Franco Nero and Corny Cleary here, they pick up David Hess, and it's like this nightmare ride. But this movie's got a pretty good twist at the end. So this is the DVD version of it. They have come out with it on Blu-ray, but if you're a fan of Corny, Corinne, yeah, pick it up. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah,
I remember thinking like her. For some reason, her delivery always sounded weird, and I couldn't tell if she just had a funny accent or if the.
Oh, and you're going to be showing me around, are you, Karen?
No, I'm just a humble pilot in the service of the Drax Corporation.
You have a heart of gold.
18 carat.
maybe the dubbing and the ADR was a little awkward.
That's the thing. In that movie Hitchhike, that I was just showing you, she's completely different, and I realized, wow, she's a really good actress.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just some bad dubbing or something. But every time she spoke, I thought it was a little odd. The dialogue is very clunky here again. I'll just say it now. I mean, the dialogue throughout the whole film I find is weird. Like a lot of very strange decisions as far as the
even the Drax dialogue.
Drax is fine. I mean, again, he's the Christopher Wood has obviously seen his share of Bond films. He knows how they're supposed to be.
Right.
He gets good lines. See that some harm comes to him. That was pretty clever. Stuff like that kind of works.
And also, too, like, there's a great scene where, Drax is out of his estate and he's shooting pheasants.
Yes.
And that's one of the best scenes in the film, right? And I was like thinking, oh, this is kind of like that scene in Thunderball with Largo, and he does the shooting, but they've added a new wrinkle to it with the guy in the tree.
Very true. Yes.
And I thought, wow, that was another good improvement on that scene. I thought.
I'll give you that. That is a great scene, and then they kind of go on to do the scene where Corinne gets,
which is weird. It's kind of wonderfully done. It's like one of the last little strokes of like artistic integrity in the film. But because it's like they filmed that scene. Like most directors, I don't think would film it that way with the lushness of the forest and John Barry with the sweeping music as this, these ominous dogs are chasing her through the forest.
Yeah,
it's a surreal, wonderful.
It gets
moment.
Almost a little horror movie-esque at some.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'll give you that. I mean, that's a good scene. They really did, and it kind of stands out because it almost feels like it doesn't blend with the rest of the film.
I know,
because it does have such a stark. I'll give you that. It's not very nice of James Bond to just sort of leave her there.
I know.
I think there's
and he didn't have Facebook at that time either. Just to see if she was on. We're off to Venice, and like I said, what do you think of the locales here? I think the locales are pretty good. As far as
great.
Nice travelogue in this.
Yeah.
And by the way, they filmed most of this, like even the interiors in France, because at the time the British tax laws were so bad that I think the only thing they filmed in Great Britain was like some of the special effects moments. But that's it.
It's odd that I remember in the opening, well, not the opening, but when he goes to the Drax headquarters, I kind of was wondering. It's funny because again, that beautiful mansion is in France.
Okay.
And it's like, again, I don't know why they went to the trouble to sort of say this was California.
Yeah.
Why not just say France? Was California kind of hip and happening at that point? That they just thought, like, we'll tell the audience that we're in California because that sounds cool? I don't know. I mean, I guess the idea of having the French chateau I mean, they say in the movie, like, oh, he moved the whole chateau over here, brick by brick.
Right.
I guess that's kind of, like, interesting, I suppose. But, again, I don't know why they went to the trouble.
Right. It is kind of an odd choice, but okay.
But the Venice locations are really good. I like that they take some advantage of the location. It's nice. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously they do a canal chase.
And there's pigeons.
And there's pigeons. Yeah, we got pigeons.
Double taking pigeons.
You got double taking pigeons. What are you gonna? It wouldn't be without double taking pigeons.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say in that gondola scene, I was thinking about how cool the setup is to that. The guy coming out of the coffin, and then him the knife throwing, and him going back in the coffin. That's all great. And then I don't know. There's a moment. I guess when he hits the land. I guess that's when it really just falls apart as an action scene.
I mean, there's already goofy stuff, and you see it coming. Like the guy with the two lovers. And then they break the boat in half, and the lovers don't know the same thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of humor that
that old chestnut, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like that kind of humor. I'm like, who thought this was the height of comedy right here?
It worked. I'm telling you though, when I remember theatrically, because I saw this a couple times when I was a kid.
Sure,
like when I remember begging and pleading, take me again to see it, and they're like, oh man, we got to sit through that Jaws stuff. but. Yeah, I mean, the audiences seem to lap it up. Most of them, anyway. Both times I saw it, I remember much laughter.
I'm sure. I mean, I guess all of the comedy in the Bond franchise around that time, and it goes well into the 80s. Again, I always sort of look back at it and go, yeah, I know you're gonna get a couple. Again, you're making films back then for theater experiences, not for years and years of home video.
Right.
So, again, it ages badly, but I guess when you're sitting in the theater and everyone around you is laughing, you can't argue with it, I guess.
Right.
You know, again, it's funny as I talk about the film. I feel like, I feel like I'm sort of being pretty passive or generous with it.
No, just go for it, man. Bring it out there. Bring all the ugly truth out.
Well, I mean, it's just, but at the end of the day, it's just so far from what I want from a James Bond film that I look at it and I kind of feel like, well, it's kind of harmless, and it's almost like I feel like at this stage of the game, you're supposed to Bond fan we've been fans for so long that it's almost like get over the whole Moonraker thing, like stop picking on the Moonrakers and the Diamonds Are Forevers, etc. But honestly, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, but I can't do it. I can't live with it. I just can't.
No, I understand. I do. I know I saw some of my father, and I know he didn't like it. So that's kind of a barometer of like an old school Connery fan, coming at this,
Kind of like when I took my father to see Dine of the Day, I guess.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, actually, there was a time when I was, I think Casino Royale was the first time I literally like grabbed my father and said,
"Yeah,
I'm taking you to a movie because you have to see this one."
Cool.
Before that, probably throughout the Brosnan era, because again, my father was the James Bond fan when he was young.
Right.
Whenever the movie would hit DVD, I usually took it to my dad's and we'd watch it.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when we saw Dine of the Day, he sat through it and he just kind of went. So I guess these movies are just all just kind of these fantasy movies now, right? They have nothing to do with reality anymore or whatever. And
he's right on that. Whoa, right on the money. And then there's the reveal of Lois Chiles. She's Holly Goodhead. She's CIA. Would they allow that name now, Holly Goodhead? In a Bond film?
Well, I'll tell you this. Honestly, I remember when I was younger and I heard it, I think it took me a long time before I sort of got the point of that name.
You go, one day you woke up and you went, oh.
That one took me a little while before I got the joke. And I went, oh, yeah. I mean, I genuinely thought, well, she's got a good head on her shoulders. What's so bad about that?
Maybe that's what it means. Maybe I got my head in the gutter. That's what it means.
I'm sure that's all it is.
Yeah.
But that scene with her and in the like you said, in the bedroom when she's got all the cosmetics or whatever.
Right.
The jump scare is weird. That when she goes to turn the light on,
she's like, right, yeah.
How weird is that?
Yeah.
The sound effect is so bizarre. Like, what the heck is that supposed to be?
It does work, though.
I guess, honestly, I kind of feel like this movie going forward, you always had that, you always had the animal scare. That John Glenn was sort of notorious for.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the idea that like one little scare in the movie to get people's adrenaline up or something to kind of get them a little more involved in the film, maybe.
Well, it might be like, hey, look, we're gonna sort of have like a dialogue scene here, a little bit of exposition going on, so on and so forth. Maybe we'll just kick it off with this, get them, like you said, that and make their adrenaline a little high, and then it goes down and goes down. Then you're up to your next action scene. I don't know.
I kind of find that's again sort of going along with what I've been saying about how the dialogue and everything, the screenplay is so awkward. It's almost like, well, how are we going to punctuate the scene to start it off? How about he scares her for some reason?
Yeah.
Like nobody's like, what? Why would he do that? Like, I don't know.
What we've forgotten is the actual the fight scene in in Venice there.
Oh yeah,
Chang. I think it's a pretty good scene. Again, it ends it has a dopey ending to it.
Play it again, son.
Ooh, this reminds me of something. I might as well get this out of the way before I forget. But I think we should. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with this, but we should talk briefly about the Mandela effect in this film. Specifically related to Dolly, Jaws' girlfriend in this.
Yes, yes.
There's a group of people. I don't want to go too deep into the Mandela effect, but basically, the long and short of it is that there's some things that people remember that have changed, supposedly. That's different than what it was originally. And one of the things, one of the big Mandela effects is in this film, and it's that Dolly is like, when Jaws first sees her, does she have braces? And the answer is no. But honestly, when I was first being questioned about this, I'm like, oh yeah, she's got braces. And then when I was like, wait a minute. And I sat down and watched the movie. A movie I had seen, by the way, since I was 11, and not watching it annually, but I watch it, every now and then throughout the decades and stuff. I was kind of blown away that she doesn't have braces anymore. Maybe I imagined it, because that seems to be the joke, right? Because she's, they look at each other, she smiles, and that's the joke. She's got braces, right? That's the joke of the scene.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I remember years ago watching this. It was on, and I was at a friend's house. I think my friend's mom was sitting there watching this. And I remember when that scene happened, the mother literally said, as that was approaching, she went, watch this, watch. She's going to have braces. She's going to have braces, watch. And she didn't. But it was almost like, I think that's why everybody kind of latched onto that, because it was such an obvious joke. How did you miss that? That I think we literally we just added it in our minds without it being there.
And they went as far as to contact the actress to ask her, did you wear braces? Because some people are convinced they digitally took out those braces, But supposedly not.
In a million years, why would they ever take that out?
And they went as far as there's T-shirts that were made up, it said Dolly had braces. I'm almost kind of on there. I honestly, I remember it like that, but obviously no. So one of those weird things. But if you want to check out Mandela Effect, go down a rabbit hole, enjoy yourself.
So why don't we talk about the elephant in the room, the whole space stuff, the big space station and the space shuttles.
I have to admit, the 11-year-old in me loves all that. I love the flight. I thought that the flight into space is really cool, and obviously the big battle at the end. I mean, it's beyond ludicrous, right? But how they get, how they're going to get that up, that space shuttle up there so fast, and in the real world, it would take days before they would even decide what they're going to do. Yeah, and then you realize, oh, yeah, they're doing the Thunderball thing here. Again, another parallel of Thunderball. And they're coming out and they have this kind of really cool space laser battle, which is. It's insane, but I love it. It's really cool. It's a really cool moment,
Yeah, I mean, it is the Spy Who Loved Me. It's just in space now, and it's basically the same exact plot.
Yes. No, very much so.
We're gonna decimate the human race and then rebuild. Right. I will say this: I liked that they kind of take it up a notch a little bit, or at least how we were talking about. How the Spy Who Loved Me does You Only Live Twice, but kind of learns over time to do certain things better. They're doing the Spy Who Loved Me again here, but I kind of thought it was fleshed out a little bit better, because now you have the couples, the Noah's Ark routine, where the couples, all the good-looking people, and he's going to repopulate with the people. They never really talked about that in the Spy Who Loved Me. They just sort of said, we're gonna blow up the human race, and that's it. They never talked about phase 2. So here they kind of thought it through a little bit better. And I will say, by the way, too, I kind of noticed this time around. I don't know if I ever made the connection before, but a lot of the people that we saw throughout the film, one of the secretaries in the Venice glass place, and the tour guide at the glass place, like people we were seeing throughout the film, showed up at the end. You just made a connection for me, because that tour guide, she's on the shuttle at the end. Yeah, there's a few people. There's a few people that again, they showed up at the end, and I didn't really notice that until just now. Yeah, no, 40 years later. Wow, I just made a connection. Right? Yeah. Funny. I feel like we're missing. Oh yeah, we should talk about the boat chase
that they have in here, which is the return of, I think the last time they use it in the films is the 007 theme. Not the James Bond theme, but the 007 theme, which is from Russia with Love. They use a little bit of that here. It's kind of a neat little hello to the older films. I think it's the last time it's used in the series. As far as I can remember, I think. But that's another scene where he's like in this cool boat and does all these things, but he's pushing buttons, you know? And then, you know, the hang glider thing is him getting off, you know, before the waterfall with the hang glider. That's cool. But then, you know, the whole Jaws and ripping off the...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you are literally talking Wile E. Coyote, and I mean,
I think
like he was driving the Acme boat, and he might as well have held up a sign saying "uh-oh" or something as he went down the.
Yeah, right. I think this movie where it takes a turn is that cable car scene. That's where things kind of say, "Oh, we're going headlong into this. We're going to triple down on the slapstick here." Because you kind of get a hint of it with the gondola chase. But then the cable car hits it home, you know?
It does.
Yeah.
You know, I remember too when after the crash, the cable car crashes, and he's stuck under the big wheel. I remember thinking, like, did Dolly literally just run over and help him push the thing off?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he couldn't push it off, and this little 90-pound little girl just came and helped him.
There was an interesting thing. They originally wanted to cast like more of an Amazon physique type of woman, you know, to be opposite Keel. But they decided to go with this because, like, originally, they said, well, you know, you can't have a woman of that stature with Keel, you know, with Richard Keel. Richard Keel's reminded him that his wife is about her size. So, yeah, so they were like, oh, okay. My 11-year-old self gives this a 10. But, you know, there's no critical analysis really when you're 11. You just kind of like I said, you like it or you don't. And I loved it. It was kind of like right after Star Wars. And, you know, two of my favorite things mixed together, you know, science fiction and James Bond. And it's like one of the greatest things ever. But then, unfortunately, I grew up and I became a cynical bastard. So, no, I'm going to give this a 7. Which might seem a little high, but I think there's a lot of good stuff here, like the skydiving scene. It's sort of a must-see for a Bond fan. You got to see, even if, you know, you want to turn your sets off right after that, that's fine, but you should watch that skydiving scene. The centrifuge scene is terrific. The production value in this is really great. And it's got, it's so eager to please that it's hard to really hate the thing. We should mention that this is also the last appearance of Bernard Lee as M in the movies. So that's kind of a, you know, it's and he seemed like more of kind of a mellow M in this. He wasn't, you know, he sort of finally seems like, you know, Bond is like, you know, he holds him in great esteem, it seemed more, you know, even like, so yeah, that's kind of like a bittersweet thing. But yeah, it's a 7. It's got some fun things in here. The slapstick is terrible. You know, like the Wile E. Coyote thing gets really old. It takes away all the suspense and drama of the action sequences. But Drax is a good villain. I really enjoy his performance, and the supporting cast is good. And I really do like Richard Keel. I just think I didn't really like the things they had him do. I think it was personally. It probably was a mistake in hindsight to make Jaws good, or maybe having him reappear wasn't the best idea. I'm not sure. But, yeah, I'll give it a 7.
So I'm pretty sure that Scott has a scale that goes from the bottom is 7, and it probably goes up to like 11 or 12. Because I don't think anything has been below a 7 yet, which makes me look like the curmudgeon of the review, which is fine. But I'm giving it a 2. I appreciate it for what it is. I appreciate it for the fact that, again, it's some people's introduction to James Bond when they were young, and I absolutely respect it for that. We need to sort of reach out to younger audiences once in a while. The video games used to do that. That's kind of lacking these days. And I've always said that a lot of those kind of middle Roger Moore years, you know, again, audiences weren't here for the crackling spy, hard-boiled spy thrillers like From Russia with Love. So we needed something to sort of carry the franchise and carry the James Bond series. But again, it's not what I'm here for. It's not why I get into James Bond. There's a lot that I like about it. The locations are great. The Bond girls are beautiful. And the opening stunt is pretty spectacular. But again, the dialogue is clunky. A lot of the scenes, the action scenes, they're so cartoony. So again, I can't say I have a lot of positive feeling about it. It is what it is. It's better than Diamonds. My Diamonds was a 1. This one is at least a 2 because I appreciate that they're trying in certain respects. But that's the best I can do. That's just it. Sorry.
See, now, I want to talk about the scale for a second because, so 5 is just barely, okay, you could watch this, right? 5 would say, I recommend watching it with reservation. But anything below that is, don't watch it. You're wasting your time.
It's not. Don't watch it. It's just more of. And again, I'm only I'm not comparing these films to Citizen Kane. I'm not comparing them to the Toxic Avenger. I'm not. These are not. These
Right.
are not my scores against the greater world of film. It's literally just against each other. So my 5 is literally just like my mid-level Bond film. In fact, I think that what I scored 5 so far would be. You Only Live Twice, and The Man with the Golden Gun. To me, that's kind of like just.
Let me tell you something. My friend Gary keeps coming at me. He's like, I can't believe he gave You Only Live Twice a 5. I'm like, what are you yelling at me? I gave the thing a great high score.
Sorry, Gary. But again, it's not bad, not good, just right there in the middle. And honestly, and anything sort of below that are the ones that I sort of take issue with.
Right.
So, and again, Diamonds was my least favorite, so that's my 1.
Okay. So this is just above Diamonds Are Forever.
It's above Diamonds Are Forever. Yes.
Okay.
And
all right.
it's because it's.
Now this is an interesting question. I bet you've seen Diamonds more than you have Moonraker.
Probably about the same. Honestly.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But again, it's like you said. It's a film that's eager to please. But having said that, again, it's got. The skydiving is probably far and away the best scene I think in the film.
Yeah,
the skydiving stunts.
Agreed. Yeah.
But again, other than that, everything is it's not what I'm here for. It's not. You have Honor Majesty's Secret Service way up here, and then you got Moonraker. What am I gonna do with this one? If I'm giving this one a 10, Moonraker is the stark opposite.
My least favorite part. I'm sorry. I just don't like that Jaws gets a girlfriend in this. It was hard enough to go through the slapstick, but I think that's kind of the dumbest thing. I guess. There's a lot of dumb stuff in this, but. Yeah, and the actress is fine. She seems adorable, but as a character, I don't know. It kind of ruined that whole Jaws thing for me in a way, the character himself. That badass from The Spy Who Loved Me is not a badass anymore. So,
that weird jump scare. I don't get what that's there for. It's such an odd moment. And again, I feel like there's when I talk about the things I don't like about the film. I could sit here all day and talk about just the goofy, cartoony moments and some things that just sort of feel awkward. But that moment, again, I look at that. That bizarre sound effect. I don't get why it's there. It just doesn't fit at all with anything resembling a James Bond film. So I got to give it to that one.
I'm going to go with the centrifuge sequence because I think that's a terrific scene. I really do. I think it's the one of the few scenes in the movie where it doesn't go into a punchline. I like even the way after Bond gets out of there and the way she's asking to help him, and just the way Moore handles that scene, where he just takes her hand and puts it back. It's a really great Bond moment, I think. And it's one of the better scenes in the film. I think it's a pretty intense scene, I think. And I love it. So yeah.
I'm gonna give it to the skydiving scene. It's a spectacular scene. I love the fact that, I mean, aside from a couple of the close-ups where it's green screened, for the most part, this is all practical stuff. This is all good old-fashioned stunt work, and they've had other skydiving scenes in Bond films that I don't think are nearly as effective. I think this is really spectacular, and as much as it does have a little bit of that cartooniness. For the most part, I think it just completely works. So, yeah, I got to give it to the skydiving scene. It's spectacular. So, is it time to go home, Scott?
Joe, take me around the vlog one more time.
Why not?